G'day there guys, it's your Aussie hubby Markee, and welcome back to another episode of r/OhNoConsequences, a subreddit where we judge people and laugh at them. If that sounds like your thing, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, let's get right into it. This story was cross-posted from Am I the Arsehole Here, and it's posted by a throwaway account, and it's titled, Would I be the arsehole if I move out of our apartment, knowing my fiance and his mum can't afford it without me? So me, female 29, and my ex, fiance, male 27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiance got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple of years, and then decided to get an MBA, which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiance is from the Midwest, and his mum has always wanted him to move back. When he told her that he was staying here, she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and international. I love my job. I like the company that I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID, my office shut down and we all went work from home. After COVID, they decided not to reopen this office, so I've been 100% work from home since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this, I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50-50. So the problem started this past May. Fiance's mum told him that she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher, so figured that she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. And because of that, I didn't really mind her staying with us, as I figured that it would be just for a couple of months over the summer. Since I thought it would only be for a couple of months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom, and Fiance bought a bed to put in the second bedroom. The problem is that she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full-time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on Teams calls. She always asks me to take her places because she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making Fiance help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down, and I hate having my office shoved into a corner of the bedroom. Back in September, I told my fiance that since it looks like his mum is going to stay a while, we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has chosen to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use, so finally, he said we could do a 50-50 split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation, he says he agrees, but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mum, and he won't talk to her about the way that she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her that she has to leave, but I think he would just end up resenting me for essentially putting his mum on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate at the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay my part of the rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mum aren't able to pay for the 1/3 rent each, there is no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do, but I wanted to see if people thought that I'd be an asshole for leaving them like this. In the comments, if you move and pay rent for your old place and your new place, then you are foolish. There is no incentive for things to change because you're just letting it go and not putting your foot down. OP says, "Sorry, I should have made that more clear. I'm on the lease in my current apartment, so I can't just up and leave. But I can afford to pay half the rent at the new place and have the rent at the old place for 3 months until my current lease is up. I'd only pay rent at the old place until the lease is up in June, so basically 3 months, and only because I don't want my credit trashed." A downvoted commenter says, "It sounds like it would be best for you, to be honest. Mum isn't evicted, you guys can keep dating whilst living separately, and your work will not be disturbed. Or why not try and find a studio flat for Mum?" OP replies, "I've suggested we find something for her, and even suggested that we could help her out with rent until she gets a job. But I get the same answer no matter what. She has to conserve money, so she can't spend any more than she already is, which is 0. Another commenter says, "Is he going to be your ex because of this situation, or was he already an ex? Either way, not the asshole. But I was just thinking, if you move out, maybe he'll see what he lost and be more motivated to get rid of his mum. That way he won't resent you for it." And OP says, "He's probably going to be my ex because of this situation. Before she showed up, everything was good, but since she got here, it's been a shit show. Honestly, at this point, we're just 2 roommates that happen to sleep in the same bed. I can't even remember the last time that we had personal time because she's always around, always watching TV in the living room on the other side of our bedroom wall." Another heavily downvoted commenter says, "My other half never had an issue with my relatives moving in. My mum once moved in for a year. He never said a word. My brother moved in for 6 months. Again, he said nothing. He expected nothing from them. His sister moved in for over a year and nothing was said. I am really shocked that so many people treat family like crap. Something, 50% of all people die of cancer. But I haven't had cancer before." Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, downvoted commenter. Good to know. OP replies, "But how did your relatives treat your other half? Or how did his sister treat you? And how did them being there affect your living arrangements and work arrangements? Did they interrupt your workday and affect your performance at work? I've had to squeeze my entire work setup into a cramped, uncomfortable corner. If she would just show some respect, it would have made a huge difference. But why would I want to support someone that treats me like crap, disregards the fact that I have a full-time job, is critical of everything I do, and insults me?" And now on to the first update, posted 4 days later. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, but honestly I just got overwhelmed with all the comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kinda harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my soon-to-be ex and his mum take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed at myself for allowing this to happen and not advocating for myself more. Back to the discussion with the ex, I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mum. Not because I thought he would, but I just wanted to be able to tell myself that I gave him the opportunity. I explained again about how unhappy I am with the situation, how it's affecting my work because of her constant interruptions and just being unhappy and uncomfortable that I'm forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago, I was paying the majority of the rent, and being that I make so much more than him, it's really my salary that keeps us all afloat. And I also brought up again the way that she treats me and talks to me. And he replied the same way that he has been. He agrees that it's not right how she acts, and that it's really uncomfortable for us all. What the fuck? I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously, I would have dropped it there. But this time I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she first moved in, and how unfair it is that I'm still paying for half when there are 3 people living there, and she's the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same story. She has to conserve money since she doesn't have any income currently, which brought up the question of where all of her stuff went when she moved. What money does she use for incidentals? So, evidently, when she got divorced, She asked for the divorce after my ex went off to college. It doesn't sound like her husband/ex's dad wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house. Ex didn't have any idea how much that was or how much is left, but until she moved here, she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she wouldn't have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much. Other than that, Ex didn't have much insight to her finances other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month, and from now on, I'm only paying 25%. As some of the commenters pointed out, she has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child, so she should have to pay twice as much. And after I move out, I'm not paying for anything else. No utilities, no food, nothing other than rent. I have a pretty good idea what his finances are like, and if he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself, it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries, there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st, but it's not late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the money. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I'll reduce the amount I pay in future months. The only reason I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office, and they explained that since X and I signed a single rental agreement together, e.g., one contract we both signed as opposed to 2 contracts we sign individually, we are both responsible for the rent. They don't care who actually pays as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself, or together with his mum. But in all likelihood, he wouldn't be able to pass the credit check on his own, so I'm kind of stuck. I don't think he'll do anything stupid though, because he's going to need to find someplace to live after this, and a collection on his credit report wouldn't be good. I also told him that I'm going to find someplace to work during the day until I move out, so that she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said that I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in-person 9-to-5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mum, I'm not about to overstay my welcome, so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it, I'll get a membership at one of those WeWork kind of places. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files, and valuables, and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. He didn't really take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mum. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed that I wanted to take care of her as much as him, and he kept saying stuff like, "What about my mum? What am I going to tell her? That's how she is, but we still need to help her," etc. He asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I move out, I need some space from him. In a few months, when we both had some time and space to process what happened, if we both agree, we can talk about the relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward and will set boundaries with his mum. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together. I told him he needs to tell his mum because she's not my responsibility or problem, and she'll know something's up when I start moving my stuff out. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend, I'm going to start moving things out, so he doesn't have much time. My friend's current roommates start a new job in another state on the 3rd, so in reality, I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending when she actually leaves. I don't expect him to do anything bad, other than sulk and complain, but if he does something stupid, or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is that I'll tell the leasing office his mum moved in, which is prohibited in the lease. Honestly, just getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now, so it's a pretty valid threat, I think. Now that I've mentally and emotionally separated myself from him and his mum, I'm looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's going on. If it gets too ugly, I'll find a cheap air bed and breakfast or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one that I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So that's it. I'm leaving, and I really don't care how that affects them. In the comments, notify your landlord in writing that you're moving out and to take you off the lease after June 1st. You wouldn't want to do nothing and accidentally trigger an automatic renewal. And OP says, already did that. I did it before I went to talk to the front office and confirmed that they received it while I was down there. Another commenter says, stick with your plan. You're almost free. Do not ever be pulled back into this toxic situation. Don't forget that the two of them are still lying to you. You pay 1/3 and he'll figure out the rest. The mother has money to pay her part. Don't be fooled. OP replies, nope, I'm paying 25%. She has a whole bedroom to herself, while I have to share, so she should have to pay more. I just wish that I had had more of a backbone when this whole fiasco started. And now on to the next update, 8 days later, 2 weeks from the original post, with the addition that I moved out. Hey everyone, I've been getting a lot of requests for an update, so I wanted to let everyone know how it went when X's mum found out about me not covering all the rent and moving out. Last week, I started moving out of my friend's apartment, the one that I'm moving in with, so I didn't see X's mum on Monday. Tuesday around lunch, she sent me a text asking where I was. I told her I was working and I'd be home late tonight. She replied that X told her that I wasn't going to be contributing as much, so she had to loan him money for rent. That wasn't a surprise to me, so I just replied with a thumbs up emoji. I had plans with my friend and her roommate, whom I'm also friends with, to go out for dinner and then get some drinks. So by the time I got home, it was after midnight and X's mum was already asleep. The fun started Wednesday morning. I was getting ready to go to work at my friend's place when X's mum stopped me and said we need to discuss my financial situation. And then she went on a whole tirade about her having to cover my part of the rent, me making foolish choices by going out to dinner when I couldn't even pay rent, I was responsible with money and inconsiderate of the impact it had on others, blah blah blah. She went on to say that if she was going to have to pay my share of the rent, that she expected me to do a better job of keeping on top of chores and keeping the apartment clean and organized. I told her I was moving out, since obviously soon-to-be ex hadn't told her yet. She seemed, I don't know, pleased with herself? All she had to say was, maybe that's for the best. When I got home that night, right off the bat, she wanted to talk. She said instead of me moving out, we could get a bigger apartment, and she'd be willing to help by paying the difference between a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom. Then we could go back to the arrangement that X and I had before she moved in, me paying 2/3 of the balance and him paying 1/3. Honestly, when she was saying this, I think my brain vapor-locked. She was making it sound like she was doing us a favor by offering to pay the increase in rent. Apparently, this man-child who tells his mum literally every single thing about our lives and relationship hadn't bothered to tell his mum how much I was actually contributing. It seems like once she discovered X wasn't paying for everything like she thought, she wasn't as excited about me moving out. I tried to be polite and told her that I'd already given notice to our apartment complex that I was moving out at the end of the month and already committed to move in with my friend. She kept pushing the issue and said that if she was willing to pay the difference, I should just stay, because that would really be best for everyone. By then, I was getting annoyed, and I told her that because of the way that she's been acting and treating me, I had no interest in living with her anymore. That's when the best line of this whole dumpster fire came out of her mouth. She said she was worried that I was taking advantage of her son, and if we had told her about our financial arrangement, she would have been more understanding of why I wasn't keeping up with the apartment. Oh my God! I told her, maybe a good lesson from this is to try to be nice to everyone in the future, and not just the people you think can help you. And I asked her why she didn't help out more, since she wasn't doing anything productive all day. She did not like either of those comments, and it got pretty hostile with both of us yelling at each other. And to be fair, we both said some pretty awful things to one another. Finally, I told her that I was going to inform the rental office that she had been living there contrary to the lease agreement, because getting evicted would be worth it to see her living on the street. I grabbed my laptop and went to my friend's. I didn't even bother packing an overnight bag. The next afternoon, Thursday, X texted me and said that he had added his mum to the lease effective the first of the month, and that she and his dad, I have no idea how that poor man got roped into this, would pay half the rent and X would pay the other half. I confirmed with the property manager that I was off the lease and didn't have any further obligation. I got it in email, so I have a record. I put disconnect orders in for the utilities under my name and told him to call and set up accounts under his name. I'm going to lose the damage deposit, as it goes to whoever is living there when the lease ends, but it's a small price to pay to be free. On the way home, I stopped and got a bunch of boxes to pack my stuff up. She was pretty hostile when I got home, and when she saw how much I was taking, she got worse. I ended up taking Friday off to finish packing, and on Saturday, got some friends to help move some stuff to my new place. I'm going to pay my friends some rent for the next 2 weeks until the one move out. They didn't want me to, but I'm not going to stay in someone's home and not contribute. If nothing else, living with X and his mum has taught me that. Last night, X and I got together and talked for the first time since Saturday. He said his mum is staying until June when the lease is up, and then she's moving back to their hometown. According to him, she just didn't really like living here, and that's why she didn't try to find a job. Oh, of course! Then he asked how long a break I thought we should take. A few commenters gave me a hard time for stringing him along, so I was brutally honest and told him that I could not be with someone that allowed others to treat me the way that he allowed his mum to treat me, and that I hope he learned to stand on his own and establish some boundaries. He looked like he was going to cry and just got up and left. As far as I'm concerned, this whole thing is over and done. I'm going to call it a learning experience and be glad that I found out how awful X's mum is before we got married. The thing that amazes me is the amount of damage this woman leaves in her wake and how utterly oblivious she is. She destroyed our engagement and relationship, is leaving X in a much worse financial situation, pushed back her ex-husband's retirement by I don't know how many years, since now he likely has to pay off the mortgage, or second mortgage, that he had to get to pay her half of the equity. And she made my life hell for 6+ months, and she's walking away completely unscathed. According to my ex, she's going back to her hometown and picking up her old teaching job. I'm thinking about going to visit my parents next week and working from their house. I want to tell them how boring and undramatic they are and how I'm so grateful for that and love them for it. In the comments, what in the apartment did OP own? Pretty much everything in the kitchen was mine. When we moved in together, he was fresh out of grad school and didn't have much of anything. He wasn't quite as bad as Kate Bishop in Hawkeye. 1 plate, 1 fork, 1 spoon, but it was close. Everything in the second bedroom / my office, other than the bed and his mum's clothes, a chest of drawers, some shelves, and a small TV. The couch was his, the bed is mine. I let him buy it from me, mainly because I didn't want to deal with moving it. Plus, some assorted small furniture and stuff. The apartment is kind of barren now. Maybe Mummy will help him decorate. Another commenter says, quote, then he asked how long a break I think we should take. I lost my shit when I read that. I hope this whole experience has opened his eyes and at least matured him a small degree. OP replies, I have to admit, I thought he'd be able to read the room on his own, but this helped validate my feelings on the whole thing. On the ex's mum's antics, OP says, anytime we asked her to do something, like loading or unloading the dishwasher or other minor chore, she'd complain that we were asking her to take care of our apartment. It really was mind-blowing that she would complain like this, but literally wouldn't do anything unless my ex basically begged. And then she'd make a big deal over all the help that she was giving us. Another commenter says, it sounds like your ex wanted to save his pride and avoid disappointing his mother by concealing how much of the expenses you were paying, and he happily threw you under the bus to do so. Even when confronted with what his mother was doing to you as a result of his lies, he kept it up. His mother was damaging to your relationship, but it was mostly him that wrecked it by betraying you like that. I'm just glad that you found out the truth about the kind of person he is before you got married. OP replies, I do think this is a lot of it. She made a really big deal about him getting an MBA, and I think she assumed he was going to be making a huge salary out of the gate. To be fair, he probably will make good money in the future, but he needs to put his time in and work for it. I think he was afraid / embarrassed to tell her what he really made. Plus, he has student loans for his MBA to pay for, so he's going to have a few lean years. But we all do, so there's nothing wrong with it, other than it didn't match her expectations. Another commenter says, I wonder what mother-in-law's endgame was. Probably to get her son to move back home to their hometown. Now that she's husbandless, she wants her son to step into that role, and he wouldn't do that while married in a way. But now he won't be married and can't afford to live away. Diabolical. And OP replies, I've been asking myself the same thing since I heard that she's planning to move back home. Honestly, I think you nailed it, especially when you factor in her divorcing her husband when X went to college. He told me about that before his mum moved here, and I remember thinking at the time that was kinda weird. I just figured that they were one of those couples that stayed together for the kids, but now it seems so much worse. Another commenter says, yes, I'm glad you got out. He needed to hear the harsh truth of not coming back to him. He did this to himself when he didn't back you up. Who wants to be with a spineless jellyfish? OP says, honestly, I was intentionally kind of a bitch. He's complicit in torching our relationship, but I did love him. I was worried that if I wasn't blunt with him, he'd try to talk me into trying again, and I wanted to close that door for good. What about the ex's dad in all of this? OP says, from the way that my ex talked, I don't think his dad wanted to get a divorce. It makes me wonder if he thinks that this might be a way to convince her to go back to him. I can't imagine why he would want her to, but it's the only explanation I can think of. And now for the final update, posted 4.5 months later, 5 months from the original post. I haven't posted here because honestly, there hasn't been any real drama or updates since my last post. But I've had several people DM asking for an update, so I thought I'd let everyone know how everything turned out. If you haven't seen it, you can find the history in my profile. After I moved out of my ex's and I's place, I did end up going to visit my parents for a while. It was really just to give the girl whose lease I was taking over space to get her stuff packed up and moved out. It was great to visit with my parents, and they were really supportive about everything and the choices I made. Mum and I spent a whole Sunday afternoon on the couch watching awful Hallmark movies, while Dad fed us way too many mojitos. I've been living with my friend for about 4 months, and everything's been going great. I feel like we're both super respectful and considerate of each other, and it's made everything so easy and chill. After dealing with my ex's mum for so long, it was kind of a shock not to have all the drama and toxicity. I did hear from my ex's mum 3 times after I moved out. The first time she texted to ask if I'd taken the air fryer. I did. It was mine. And then she texted a couple of weeks later, asking me to give her a ride to the pharmacy to pick up her prescriptions. And then she texted one last time, telling me that I needed to pay my part of the utilities for the last month I lived there. I ignored her the first 2 times, and the last time responded that she should either use the money that she saved while I was covering rent, or use the money that they get back from the damage deposit. It's been crickets since then. I did see my ex one last time about 6 weeks ago. He found some of my stuff that I'd accidentally left behind, so we met up so he could give it to me. I was glad that we met up because it convinced me I'd done the right thing. I didn't feel anything when I saw him, except for relief that I didn't need to deal with his mum anymore. He asked if I'd be willing to give it another try if he put boundaries in place with his mum. I was honest and told him that I didn't see him in that way anymore and didn't want to get back together. He looked like he expected that answer and didn't make a fuss. He did say that after I left, stuff with his mum got pretty tense. I guess things were tight financially, which I knew would happen, and she was upset that due to his job, he couldn't drive her around and cater to her needs. He said she ended up moving back to their hometown in the beginning of May, which was the final month of their lease. He said he was going to move back also once the lease was up because his friends were all in the middle of leases and already had roommates. He didn't want to live with a stranger, and the only apartments he could afford on his own were studios in really sketchy areas. So he's going to go back home and live with his dad. He didn't have a job there yet, but he figured that it was the safest option. He's got his MBA and almost a couple of years of work experience since graduating, so he's hoping that that'll help him find a new job reasonably quickly. I kind of feel bad for him because he loves it here and his hometown isn't awesome, but I didn't really feel too bad though, since it's really his own fault that everything ended up this way. He didn't say how or what his mum was doing, and I didn't ask. I haven't seen or heard from him since then. I was pretty clear that I wasn't interested in trying again, and don't want to be friends, as I just don't need the drama. I've been on a couple of casual dates, but really I'm not looking for anything right now. I'm just enjoying hanging out with friends, taking advantage of the summer, going hiking and stuff. I've spent some time reflecting on everything. I think if I'd been more vocal early on and stood up for myself, insisted that she pay rent and not let her overstay, that maybe all of this could have been avoided. But I'm glad that I don't have to deal with her anymore, so I'm content with how everything ended up. Cheers, and be well. In the comments, 2006 Bruin says, OP is the bomb. Recognized and articulated the situation instead of allowing it to linger unsaid and without any action like so many other people do in these situations. The ex really has no clue what his mum did to him. She only moved in to split them up and to get him to move back, and she did exactly that. She won. I bet she'd do the same thing if he moves away and gets in another relationship. I don't know if she wanted to move him home exactly. She seemed like she would have been perfectly happy to break up the relationship and then just stay there. I expect she only went back home when it became undeniable that homeboy hadn't turned his MBA into 6 figures of mummy never has to work again yet. Crazy that he just let his mum completely nuke his life like that. Lost the fiance, the job, and the city. People like that think that if they continue to ignore problems, they will go away. But consciously or subconsciously expect others to deal with the consequences of the problem so that they don't have to. The real problem to them is when their family and friends bring up the problems. Most of my family is like that. I just watched a relationship blow up for similar reasons. It's really obvious that person who wanted to ignore the problems traded gems for shit. The other people in their life wanted to solve the problems while they wouldn't. But it required hard boundaries with some people, just like with OP and X, and the delusional person lost a lot for it and still doesn't seem to get why. And to tie this all up, r/OhNoConsequences. I didn't set hard boundaries with my mum, and she separated me from my fiance? Man, the consequences of my inactions and my enabling really came to bite me back in the ass after all of this. Honestly, this is such a fantastic story though, because, we say the shiny spine stuff from the Just No Mother-in-Law subreddit. That comes up a lot, but goddamn did OP have a shiny spine. She didn't avoid the problems. She just tackled that shit straight away, and she took all of the advice from the comments, set herself up for success from the get-go, and was like, alright, well, you guys can do your own thing here, but I'm out. I'm gone. I don't know how this man didn't realize that the break was actually a breakup, especially after OP repeatedly beat him over the head with crystal clear reasons as to why she's upset, as to why she's very much not happy in this relationship and this living situation. Here are the answers to the problem, fiance. Would you like to work with me to fix the problems so that we can get back to a healthy, happy relationship? This is entirely his fault that the relationship crashed and burned. He decided not to listen to his partner. This is what happens. Thank you for the story and the saga of updates, OP. Thank you. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.